first, bless her heart, looked terrified in the beginning. And then it looked like she had the hang of it, so she was okay. But at first she was like, holy shit, I have to smile and look like I'm not freaking out that these men might drop me. And then she finally like relaxed a little bit after, I just want to say like 2 minutes. And you couldn't even tell. I could just tell because I knew her and I could see how she was feeling. And I was feeling the same way, like, oh my God, don't drop her. Welcome back to this week's episode of 10 Hours from Home. I'm super excited to be back with you this week. My humble little podcast has gotten to the most listened to on Good Pods this week, so that was very exciting. And thank you all for your support. It means a lot to me. I've gotten the most downloads this week that we've gotten so far, so it's been a very exciting week. And on top of all of that, this week, one of my friends got married. I've been in Morocco now for about 2 weeks. And so this week was a little bit crazy because there was a wedding and there was family stuff. So it was a crazy busy week and it ended all at the beach, which was nice. But today I'm coming to you feeling a little bit like I have a hangover, even though I haven't had anything to drink. I haven't really been up that late. I just went to a Moroccan wedding and it was the first time I've done the whole wedding. So I've been to Moroccan weddings before. I was invited actually early on into my Moroccan experience to a friend's cousin's wedding who I'd never met before. And it was on the fall behind day. So the day we gain an hour. And Morocco actually doesn't do daylight savings time anymore. The king decided 3 days before it was supposed to happen that it wasn't going to happen anymore. And so everyone was very confused at what time they were supposed to be anywhere. When he just said, okay, we're not going to do daylight savings time anymore. But unfortunately, this wedding was during the daylight savings existence. And my friend said, just be prepared, it'll be going late. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, we'll be out late, like 2, 3, maybe 4 o'clock in the morning. No, this wedding went until 8 o'clock in the morning on the day that we fell behind. So technically 9 o'clock in the morning. We got to this wedding at 8 p.m. and it didn't stop until 9 a.m. technically. I mean, like without daylight savings time. So it's insane. Like, I love a Moroccan wedding, but it is an effort to attend. Like, you have to take a nap before, you have to be well hydrated, well rested. You have to be prepared for hours and hours of eating because that's another huge component of a Moroccan wedding is food. It's one of the best things about a Moroccan wedding. If you ever are interested in seeing the traditional dresses in Morocco, a Moroccan wedding is a great place to go. It's like a fashion show, and quite literally, it's like a fashion show. The bride, here's the thing. I would never want to be a Moroccan bride. I love a Moroccan wedding. I love to be a guest at a Moroccan wedding. I would never want to be the bride at a Moroccan wedding because they change their dresses 6 times. There are 6 different dresses that they wear. So they have one traditional one, there's a red kaftan and a green kaftan, and there's all these other kaftans, and then like wherever they're from in Morocco, they have a specific garment that they wear. They have the traditional Moroccan dresses, and then they have a traditional Western dress at the end. And so it's a lot of work as a bride. And I mean, even like the groom doesn't have it as bad. Let's be honest. In any wedding, a groom really doesn't have it that bad. You just have to show up. And, in Morocco, they still have to do the presents and the jewelry and all that, which for that reason, I would be a Moroccan bride. But for the other ones, it's way too much work. So this wedding that I went to this weekend was 3 days long, because my sweet friend included me in all of her beautiful celebrations. So the first day was supposed to be a bridal shower type day where
We like hung out and ate and celebrated her and did some stuff. I wasn't really sure what it was, but it turned out that because the administration who signs the wedding license, they were going on strike on Thursday. So we were doing this on Wednesday. And then the next day they were supposed to be signing the wedding certificate with the imam and the guy from the government. And then Friday was supposed to be the wedding. So instead, on Wednesday, my poor sweet friend was caught off guard when she had to sign the documents on Wednesday. And her husband and all of her uncles and all of his uncles and brothers and everybody showed up because to witness a marriage, you need 12 men, I think is what it is. I'm pretty sure. I can't remember exactly. So if I'm wrong, I apologize. But I want to say it's 12 men. It's some amount of men, but I want to say it's 12. Don't quote me. And again, if I'm wrong, I'm sorry. Anyway, so all these men show up to our bridal shower day. And she was completely caught off guard that she was signing her wedding certificate today and nobody was expecting it. So it was like a big surprise for everyone that all of a sudden she was married. So she was legally married on Wednesday and we had the big celebration on Friday. And then Thursday was the day of henna. So Wednesday was 2 o'clock until 9 o'clock at night. So 7 hours of wedding and party and like fun and dancing and celebrating. And then Thursday was 4 o'clock until 9 o'clock. So 5 hours of henna and eating and dancing and partying and celebrating and gifts. That day, I think, was probably my favorite day because one, I mean, obviously, other than the wedding, but one, my friend looked so beautiful and she wore this beautiful green dress because the green dress is for the henna day. And you get to see all the gifts that the fiance or the husband to be got for the bride. So all of a sudden his family comes in, his mom, his sister, his brother-in-law, and his nephew, and then all of these men come in behind them with gifts of, let's see, well, there's milk and honey and dates. That's the tradition. And then jewelry. There was a bunch of jewelry and there was this huge mountain of chocolate and I want to say probably 4 or 5 boxes from Fendi. I mean, and then that's when I was like, maybe I will get married. I could use a new purse or a couple pairs of shoes or whatever was in those boxes. I don't know. But you see all these men dressed in these traditional things and there's all this music everywhere. It just was an exciting day. And then she came down and we all danced and it was fun. And then we did henna and mine is slowly fading. It looks more like freckles now on my hand because part of the problem was I have a tan, so my henna is the same color as my skin at the moment. And so it was hard to see in the first place, but now it's fading a little bit. But it was fun, and we ate a ton of amazing food. And I sat at the table with all the aunties and the grandmas. They were all force feeding me food, which is hilarious because it never fails. I'm the foreigner, so I'm the one that people notice the most. I'm the one because Moroccans are so welcoming and so hospitable. I'm the one that they always make sure is like eating and drinking and has all the things that they need. And I super appreciate it. It's very sweet, but also like a certain point, I'm gonna explode all over the table if you keep shoving food in my mouth. And I was telling this to my Moroccan mom after the wedding. I went to her house on Friday for couscous because that's our traditional couscous day it's everybody's couscous day, but I go usually when I'm here to couscous with them on Friday. And I was telling my Moroccan mom, I said, last night when I was at the wedding, I was sitting at the table with the grandmas and the aunties and everybody, and they were saying, "Kuli, kuli," which means eat. And I said, at a certain point, there was a huge plate of lamb legs, like a massive amount of leg. And they're saying, "Kuli, kuli." And then her very sweet grandma, gives me another lamb leg. I still have meat on my plate. I'm still not done. I'm not a huge eater. This is the thing. I love food, but I can't eat a whole portion of food in one sitting. That's just not a whole Moroccan portion of food in one sitting. And then my sweet Moroccan mother, when she brought out my plate of couscous, it was the size of my head. And I said, this can't be all for me. And she said, it's all for you. And my friend, who is her actual son, she said, there's another part for him too. And I was like, this is too much food. Anyway, but she is now after, let's see, almost 4 years of our familial, loving, amazing relationship, she has finally started saying, you eat what you want, don't worry. Like, she doesn't say coolie all the time anymore. So I'm happy about that. Anyway, so I was sitting at the table with all the grandmas and they were forcing me to eat more and more. And I was like, really? It's okay. Like, I'm full, Safi. It's enough. I can't do anymore. I swear to God. So that was a fun day, the henna day. And then finally on Friday was like the big day. The wedding. My sweet friend, she's so sweet. I gotta tell you, she's the sweetest person I know. And I know she's into this wedding because obviously it's part of her culture and all of that. But she was making certain concessions and she was making certain boundaries. She said, I will do 2 dresses and that's it. I don't want to do all 5 or all 6 or whatever they are. So she ended up doing 3 dresses plus the wedding dress. So 4 dresses still, which is, again, it's just a lot of work. I mean, at an American wedding, you don't get to eat anyway. And you're not changing every 5 minutes. Like, maybe you change from the ceremony to the reception and you have a different dress. But Moroccan women have to change. They don't sit down. Because they do the greeting at the tables. They dance. That's the other thing. So the first dress she comes down in, I can't remember the name of it, but they put her up in this, I don't even know how to describe it in English, but it's like a handheld carriage, kind of like the old princesses were, walked around in. I don't know how to explain it. It's basically, if you think of, and I hate to use this analogy, but if you think of the real life Aladdin movie that they just did, the thing that he was in on the elephant, they basically put it's like a carriage type thing that they put on these 4 men put on their shoulders and they carry the bride around and they dance with her. And it's this big celebration. And I can't remember the name of it, but it looks terrifying. They do this on the henna day too. So the first time she's in this basket of sorts, it's the day of the henna, and she, bless her heart, looked terrified in the beginning, and then it looked like she had the hang of it, so she was okay. But at first she was like, holy shit, I have to smile and look like I'm not freaking out that these men might drop me. And then she finally relaxed a little bit after, I just want to say 2 minutes, and you couldn't even tell. I could just tell because I knew her and I could see how she was feeling, and I was feeling the same way, oh my God, don't drop her. So the second day, on the wedding day, the first dress that they have her in, they put her in a different style. So the first one's open on the edges and this one's enclosed, kind of like a gazebo, like a portable gazebo, for lack of a better word. And they put boards that are holding this gazebo-like thing on their shoulders, and they dance around with her and turn her around and show her off to all of the guests. And then they bring her down. She changes her dress again, not directly after. We were dancing a little bit and all that stuff. And then she goes to change her dress again. And then her and her husband go in their own respective open air baskets now. Again, I'm using basket for lack of a better term because it's not a basket. It's this beautifully carved, handcrafted wood octagon shaped thing that's on these 2 boards, and these men carry them around. So, and this one, they dance around together. And again, I don't remember the traditional name for it, so I'm sorry. They, move around the party, and when, they do this little dance back and forth and around and round, and then the groom has to kiss the bride in the other one. And that's a little bit terrifying because he has to stand up in this thing on these men's shoulders while they're moving around and kiss his new bride. And I'm like, oh my God, don't fall. It's a lovely celebration. It's just, it seems like a lot of work it's a lot of work as a guest too, to be honest. Like 3 days of solid partying and eating and dancing and getting hair done and renting kaftans, because I rented my kaftans because I didn't have enough time to make them. So I can't even imagine, because that's a tenth of what the bride and groom and the mother of the bride and the father of the bride have to deal with and have to go through. So it just seems like a lot of work, but thankfully it is a lot of fun. So all of their hard work paid off, and there's so much food. Oh my God. For as many dresses as there are courses of food and appetizers, and you never stop eating at a Moroccan wedding. From the moment that you walk in, you get juice and hors d'oeuvres and all of these things. And then when you sit down to eat, you have the first course with seafood and foie gras and something else. Oh, burrata. And then the second course was pastilla, which is a traditional dish here that it's pastry dough basically that's stuffed with, the traditional pastilla is chicken with cinnamon and powdered sugar, which here's the thing. I love Moroccan food. I love most Moroccan food. In fact, I would say probably 99.9% of Moroccan food, but pastilla is something I can never wrap my head around. Just because here's the thing, I like sweet and salty. I don't mind that combination. There's plenty of tangines that I eat. There's a goat tangine that's salty with the goat, and it has prunes and raisins, and it's sucré salé, as the French would say. But there's something about chicken and powdered sugar that I cannot wrap my head around. And it's not that it tastes bad. It's just literally a mental block of, I can't wrap my head around chicken and powdered sugar and cinnamon. It's kind of like eating chicken on your French toast. And I mean, I know we do chicken and waffles in the US and all of that. And it's not, like I said, it doesn't taste bad. It's just something I can't wrap my head around. Anyway, but there's another one that's seafood. So they had a trio. So they had the chicken, they had the seafood, and then they had another one that was spinach and salmon, which I've never had. I think it's way more French than Moroccan. So then the course after that was roasted veal with potatoes and carrots and all kinds of stuff. And then after that, there was fruit. And then after that, there was ice cream cake. And then after that, they passed around tea and little petit fours. After that, there was wedding cake. So it's just so much food. It's so much food. And so it's a good thing you're dancing all night to work off all the calories that you've been eating all day. But anyway, if you're ever invited to a Moroccan wedding, absolutely go. Absolutely rent a kaftan, because you will never feel prettier. I have never felt prettier than when I wear a kaftan. When I go to the mosque and I cover my head and I wear a kaftan, those are the 2 times I feel the prettiest in the world. Because it's just, I don't know, you feel like a princess. It's this beautiful embroidered just thing that's, I don't know how to explain it. It's just beautiful, and it's just fun, and it is a lot of hard work as a bride and as the family of the bride and as a guest if you're invited to all 3 days. But as long as you go prepared, as long as you get to have the fun of dressing up and enjoying the moment and eating Moroccan food and dancing the Moroccan dances and being around Moroccan people, I think it's just the best time. Honestly, it just really is. And I highly recommend it. Even if I do feel like I have a hangover today, even though I haven't had anything to drink since I've been here. I feel like I've been drinking all night until 3 a.m. and then I dove in the ocean yesterday and I felt a little bit better, but I'm still tired today. So anyway, I highly recommend it. Definitely do it. It's a good time. So today's topic is all about the opposite of how I'm feeling. And that is when you are at a place, you've settled in a little bit, all of the adrenaline rush is over, and now you're sitting in your apartment or wherever you are, and you're starting to miss home a little bit. And that is absolutely normal. It happens to every single one of us. And sometimes it's hard to get over. Sometimes it really is. Sometimes you just miss your mommy. And that's perfectly fair and fine. And it's totally normal. I remember when I first came to Barcelona, and my mom and I had been traveling around the south of France before we came to Barcelona to have a little bit of a vacation and discover the south a little bit. And enjoy our time together. And she actually was looking at buying a house in the south of France for a very long time. So we explored the city that she was looking at. And then we got to Barcelona and we were in our own place and everything was good. And we met my family and she was about to leave and drop me off with my family. And I was saying goodbye and she left and I hadn't cried yet, but I don't know. The minute that she left, I just burst into tears. And I think part of it was because I knew that I had made a mistake with the family that I was an au pair for. Like I had felt it in that moment. It was just a guttural reaction. But also because my mom and I are super close. We're very close. And she's like my best friend and always has been. So it was really hard to watch her leave. And I was worried about really being able to do this without her and, really be able to be in a foreign country where I'm learning that I don't speak the languages I thought I did. And even Spanish was so different that it was harder for me to understand and speak. It was a very alone feeling in that moment. And when she was leaving, and so even before I had started all the process of the craziness and the school and the this and the that, I was I was missing her and I was sad and I was ready to go home already. I was like, I miss my mommy. So I totally understand and it's totally normal. And every single person I have ever met has felt this way. And that's totally normal. Even when I moved to Paris, it was a different situation. I moved to Paris and I already had an established friend group. I already had a boyfriend at that point. And he was showing me around to all of his friends. He was showing me around the city. He had a car. So it was a different experience. And even with an established friend group, even with somebody that I was in a relationship with, it was still hard to be away from home. And there were still times when I missed my family and I missed my things and I missed just everyday things of living in the US. And with Paris, I don't want to say it was more difficult or less difficult because, like I said, I had that established friend group. I had a boyfriend who could help me navigate things, but I didn't speak the language at all when I moved to Paris. I didn't speak one word of French. That's not true. I spoke a little bit of French. I was able to say, bonjour, je m'appelle Cathy, and can I have one baguette or, whatever it was. I was able to say one or two things, but I was not able to communicate to people. I was not able to understand when I was in the OFI that the woman wanted me to take off my shirt and my bra and stand naked in front of the x-ray machine. It was an argument in two different languages and I was like, I don't understand what you're trying to tell me. Even with that extra addition of people and support, it was still a difficult transition and it was still something that made me homesick and it still was an adjustment. And I think that the thing that is also difficult about it is that a lot of times when you're around people who live in the place that they've lived their entire lives and have the friends that they've had since, they were in elementary school, it's hard for them to understand what it's like to be an outsider in their world because they've never been an outsider in their world. My ex used to travel a lot, and so he would say, "Oh, I understand because I travel and it's not that hard to be away from home." But traveling and living somewhere are two very different things. Being a tourist who has to deal with electricity bills and banks and metros day to day and school and work and relationships and rent and all of those things is a very different experience than going to a country like Thailand or Japan or even the furthest thing from your mind, even if it's a difficult thing for you to imagine to do, and you should definitely do it. That is awesome. And I'm not saying that it's, not something that you should do or not something that you should feel homesick about, because when you're traveling, you can absolutely feel homesick. But traveling and living somewhere are two completely different things. Traveling, the purpose of your journey is to have fun. The purpose of your journey is to explore and do fun things and eat amazing food and all of those things, however you travel, whatever that looks like. But living somewhere is about all of those things too, but also about dealing with administration in a language that you may not understand, and dealing with renting an apartment, and dealing with paying your electricity bill, and dealing with going to the doctor or the hospital or whatever it is for the first time or the second time in a language that you don't understand, or trying to navigate a socialist system in a language that you don't understand, which there's a lot of administration and all of that stuff involved. So it's a very different experience. It's similar in the fact that, yes, you are there to explore and discover a new culture and all of those things as well, but you also have the day-to-day things that happen that you would not necessarily have to deal with in your own country. Like, you don't have to deal with being an immigrant or a resident or an expat or whatever in your own country. You don't have to deal with the additional administration and the additional stress of all of that. And you don't generally have to deal with that as a traveler, whether you're from a country where you need a visa to travel. That's generally done before you leave, and in a language that you understand by somebody in your own country, or you don't have to do it at all. So it's a very different experience. And even though people will try to say, "Oh, I understand," it's hard for people to understand when they haven't lived away from their human comforts, you know? There's certain things, and when I first moved to Paris, there was nothing like America in Paris. The crazy thing was, when I moved there 10 years ago, nobody spoke English. Nobody wanted to have barbecue. There were McDonald's, but I mean, really, who wants to eat McDonald's? I mean, and again, if you want to eat McDonald's, feel free, but it's just not my thing. Here's what I will say. The first time I came to Morocco, I was all excited about eating Moroccan food and trying new things and all this stuff. And my friend picked me up from the airport and he said, "We're going to go meet a group of my friends at this place." And I hadn't eaten all day because I was running around getting ready to go to Morocco. And I said, "Okay, but I'm starving, so I need something to eat." And I said, "Whatever it is, I don't care if there's maybe like a sandwich shop or like something fast that we can get." And he's like, "The only thing we have that we can do really quickly on the way to where we're going is McDonald's." And I was like, shit. The first thing I eat in Morocco cannot be a cheeseburger. That it can't be the thing. But it was. I don't think it was a cheeseburger. I think I got chicken nuggets. But still, I was so upset. That being said, the McDonald's here is so much better than any McDonald's that I've ever had anywhere else in the world. And sometimes you do just need, some crappy American fast food to make you feel human again, unfortunately. And that's true. And I've done it, and it's still sometimes my hangover food, and it's still easy no matter what country you're in. So back to when I first moved to Paris, there were no barbecue shops. There was very limited sushi. There was very limited things that just that I was used to living in California. Sushi, Korean food, Chinese food, all Americanized Chinese food and Korean food and all of that stuff, but still access to it. Ethiopian food is something that I love to eat. And so when I first moved there 10 years ago, those things were very rare and or hard to find. Now you turn around every quarter, everybody speaks English. I swear to you, I hear more English in Paris now than I hear French in the streets. It's crazy to me. I'm walking Paris and I hear nothing but English. And it's like, what happened here? Why is everyone speaking English now? 10 years ago, I couldn't even get a freaking baguette by saying, "Can I have a baguette?" Nope. Nope. Now everybody speaks English, but it is just a sign of the changing times. You can find barbecue in Paris now. So it's really easy to have those creature comforts of your home in Paris specifically. But 10 years ago, that didn't exist. And I would get really homesick for certain things. I remember I used to make apple pies and things like that to make it feel more homey. And I don't even like apple pie. When I moved to Morocco, when I moved here to Morocco in the summer of 2017, I felt home. Really, like, for the first time. Paris is home. Paris is and probably always will be home because I've spent so much of my time there. I've grown up there. My adulthood happened there. Most of the good and bad things in my life happened there. Paris will always be home, but I will say that when I put my feet in Morocco for the first time, it felt like home. I felt like I just knew what to do. I felt like I knew where to go. I felt like I had been away for a really long time and just came back, and it was like riding a bike. Nothing felt unfamiliar. Nothing felt overwhelming. Nothing felt difficult. I told you about finding an apartment here. Everything was really easy. It all fell into place really easily. And I had a really easy time navigating this space for a really long time. I didn't have that first 6 months of feeling really out of place and feeling like I needed to have those comforts of home. I felt like I was in those comforts of home, if that makes sense. So it was really an odd kind of reverse situation that I wasn't used to. And that's not to say that I didn't have difficulties. That's not to say that after a year or 2 years, actually, of being here, that it didn't start to wear on me. It did. It started to wear on me a lot. I had some projects that went really awry in a way that I didn't want them to go awry. I failed at a couple of things and I freaked out. And I freaked out because this place was my happy place. This place was where I was supposed to feel safe and things were supposed to be easy and life was supposed to be easy. And then I tried to do some business stuff and it all blew up in my face and it wasn't easy anymore. And I freaked out for sure. But Morocco, and I don't know if this is because of the person that I came to Morocco with, and it might be a part of that because he's been absolutely an amazing friend and by my side and helped me through all of the hard stuff here 1,000%. And I'm so grateful for that. But I also really took it upon myself to explore the city, explore Morocco, and to make a community of people here that I care about and that I like and that I enjoy spending time with. And some of them come and some of them go, and some of them are here for the rest of their lives. And some are just not superficial friends. I don't want to say it like that, but some friends are friends that I don't go super deep with, but they're fun to hang out with. They're fun to have dinner with and connect with. And some friends are deep friends and some friends are family. What's weird about Morocco is that when I go somewhere else, I miss Morocco a lot. And that's true for Paris too. Whenever I go home to California to visit my mom, I'm super happy to see her. I'm super happy to be with her because she's, my buddy and I love her, and I will always want to be around her, and that's the one thing. If I could have her wherever I am, that would be perfect. But I don't miss anything else. I don't miss anything else about California at this point. I don't miss driving. I don't miss the food, really. I mean, I will say California has the best food of all the food in the US in terms of quality of product, but I don't miss it more than I miss Paris when I'm away, and then I miss Casablanca when I'm away. I miss my mom, and that's what I miss about California. And I miss some of the friends that I have there. But I miss Casablanca when I'm in Paris or when I'm in the US, and I miss Paris when I'm in the US, not so much when I'm in Casablanca. Sometimes I get to a point too where I will be like, okay, I need to leave Casablanca. I need something different. But on the flip side, I go to Paris, there's no beach, there's no crazy taxis, there's no sweet, sweet Moroccans who are being so kind to me. And so I miss Casablanca when I go back. There's certain things that I do miss about the US in terms of Morocco, for example. The thing that I miss about the US the most when I'm here is the diversity in California. So I miss people that look different than me. I miss people that look different from other people. I miss that part of it, but I don't actually miss anything about like the state or the place or the creature comforts that I have there. And that's not to say that Casablanca doesn't have great food and different food and, from different places, but it is not like being in Paris or the US in terms of you can go around the corner and find, a Korean restaurant run by Koreans. That's the thing that I miss more than missing the actual place, if that makes sense. What I will offer in terms of advice, because the thing about me is I'm not really great at being sad. I mean, I do get sad. Don't get me wrong. I'm not sitting here saying like I'm never sad and everything's always fine. No, the thing is I'm not really great about being sad because when I get sad, I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to connect to anybody. I don't want to go out of my house. I just want to stay in my pajamas and just be sad. So when I was homesick, that's not really conducive to, meeting people and doing all the things that you need to do not to be homesick. The one piece of advice that I will give is that when I was first living abroad, it was really difficult because I could only reach out to my family via Skype. And with the time differences and all of that stuff, it was really hard to figure out how to connect to them because 9 hours from Spain or Paris to California is a whole day, right? But like a weird day. It's not Australia a day where, you're going to bed as I'm coming up and as I'm waking up so we can talk. I can talk to my mom at dinner time when she's going to work. Or I can talk to my mom at lunch at work, but I have to stay home and not go out with my friends. So it was a weird, difficult way to figure out what time to connect. And then if I didn't have any money in my Skype account, like I'd have to recharge it and figure it out and blah, 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 blah. And I'm not good at video calls either. They make me too sad. My mom is the same way. My mom hates video calls and she will call me all day long on voice call and not cry at all. But as soon as she sees my face, she will cry. She's like, I miss you so much. It's a weird thing to know that you're not there. It's one thing to just be like talking on the phone. You can sort of be in denial, like, oh, she's down the street or oh, she's over there. But when you see someone else with a different background and all of that, I don't know, for me and for my mom, apparently it doesn't work really well. So we only saw our faces when we were together, which thankfully we have the privilege, and I have the privilege, and she has the privilege of being able to see each other quite often. For that, I'm grateful. I don't know if I could live abroad if I only saw her once or twice a year or once every other year or whatever the case may be. I don't know that I could do that because, again, like I said, we're so close. So those are just some things to remember when you are trying to figure out the whole connecting to your family and talking to your family and talking to your friends back home. Figure out the time zones and always try and at least connect to them on the phone. And now there's so many ways to do that. There's so many ways. There's WhatsApp. There's Skype, there's Zoom, there's a bunch of them I don't know about. There's Facebook, Messenger, you can just do it on there. I think you can even do it on Instagram now, like FaceTime or audio calls or whatever it is. There's FaceTime. There's so many ways to connect back to your family that everyone uses on a daily basis now, even if they're down the street. So it's super easy to get in touch with your family and friends. And that's my number one thing that I will say when you are away from home. One, you will find out who your friends are because your friend group will become much smaller if you're not able to go out with people all the time. If you're just talking to them about daily life stuff and about the happenings in your life and the happenings in their life, your friend group will get smaller and you will go home and you'll probably see those other people, but you will know who the standouts are, who test of time people are. And it's an interesting phenomenon that happens because sometimes the people that you didn't think were your, ride or dies are actually the people who end up showing up for you. And so I'm sure this happens too when people just move away from home or move, to a different state or to a different place in their country. They figure out who are the ones that they connect to the most, who are the ones that are invested in them the most. And a lot of times I'm sure it surprises you. It's the same when you move abroad. Just keep that in mind, and just keep in mind that you do have to figure out the time difference part of it. I would say right up front so that you're able to, when you're having those moments, connect to your family at the right time when you know that you will be able to sit and connect with them. That being said, I've reached out to my expat community to ask them what their most helpful tips are for overcoming homesickness and that first bout of getting over it, because it does get easier, that's for sure, as time goes on, as you learn how to work within the new system that you're working in. You will learn how to connect to your people and how to embrace where you are and how to make those small changes to love the place that you're in and to feel comfortable and make it feel like home too. And then you'll have my problem of when you're there, you miss there. When you're there, you miss there. And that's a good problem to have, you know? And it's a very odd phenomenon. And so once you start to get used to where you are, I'm sure that'll happen to you as well. And you just will be like me and have no freaking idea where you belong in the world. So let's talk about some of these tips that the expat community, who are better at being sad than I am, have. This one says, I went outside, explored my new surroundings, became familiar with it. There were so many places that I really missed when I moved here, like my gym, Target, nightclubs, coffee shops, etc. Over time, I found places here that I love, and it really helped. So that's an awesome tip. Finding places that you love in your city to add to the places that you love from the city that you're from. That's really an important component of making a place feel like home, doing the exploring, finding those places that are your places, your coffee shop, your neighborhood that you love to frequent, whatever it is, something that makes you feel like you have a spot there, if that makes sense. This one is actually really interesting because it talks to what I was saying about our friends, and we kind of see who the ride or dies are and who falls by the wayside, and it usually surprises you. And she's saying that one thing that happened to me over time was that my friends back in the US had an out of sight, out of mind mentality, and that's very true. It happens so much, and it's nobody's fault. It's just a lot of times when you have friendships, certain friendships are about certain things. And when you're not there in person to do those things together or to grab a drink or to grab a coffee, and that's when you connect, and that's how somebody connects, they fall by the wayside, and it's a very odd phenomenon. So this woman's saying the exact same thing, out of sight, out of mind, and then you try to continue to maintain contact, but even when you go back to the US, it's still not the same when you live there as when you live there. It definitely shows you who your friends are, and it shows you the importance of making those friends, just having someone to go grab a coffee with like you would at home, or to go grab a drink with like you would at home. Those are important friends to have too, to help you branch out in your circle and to continue, making it feel more like home. This one cracked me up because it says, load up on Reese's peanut butter cups and binge them until you throw up. I think that is awesome advice. I used to smuggle in all kinds of stuff, and I say smuggle like I was like hiding anything. I never hid anything. I would bring back peanut butter. I would bring back Reese's cups. I would bring back peanut butter M&Ms. I would bring back my toothpaste because I hated the toothpaste in France. I still do, actually. I still import my toothpaste from the US. Whatever creature comforts you need to get you through that time, I highly recommend. Now, specifically in Paris, they have a lot of those things that they didn't have before. They're still much more expensive. Like a small, probably 4-ounce jar of Skippy peanut butter is about €8. So I still recommend bringing it back in your suitcase because it's still cheaper. But it definitely helps to have those small creature comforts. Sit down and watch Netflix or talk to one of your technologically advanced friends, like my buddy Hashem, my baby Moroccan brother Hashem, taught me how to get American TV in Morocco. So, find the series that you like, sit down with some, Orville Redenbacher's popcorn that you love from the US, and sit down and just, eat away with your Reese's peanut butter cups and have a moment where you feel semi like a normal person, or wherever your country is, whatever that country is for you that's home. You can definitely, if you're from Morocco, like find a Moroccan restaurant that makes rafisa and sit and watch the soap operas that they have here that my Moroccan mom loves. Whatever it may be, definitely important to do those things and get yourself feeling back to normal and comfortable. That's what it's more about. It's just about being comfortable. This is a good one. Volunteering, because it's a little bit trickier when you don't speak the language of where you're volunteering, but there are organizations, English speaking organizations, that you can definitely volunteer at that help you to feel more connected to the community that you're in and also to meet like-minded people. It's a very good way of meeting and finding your place in your chosen home. The other thing I will say and suggest is connecting to other expats in your group or other immigrants from the place that you're from. Expats are a little bit trickier because it's a lot of coming and going. So if you are someone who is deciding to stay in the country that you're choosing to live in, if that's your forever home, I highly recommend you search for people who also have made it their forever home, because otherwise, if you're dealing with just expats, it's really hard to have people come and go out of your life like that. I mean, there are people that I have met for a year who I still consider really good friends and I still talk to on a daily basis or, a weekly basis or whatever it is. But in order to have that stability that you're searching for, because that's part of the problem with the homesickness feeling, is that you don't have the stability that you had at the place that you were coming from. And when I was in Barcelona, we used to have a weekly dinner at my house and I would cook whatever I was feeling like cooking. Or my Swedish friend, one time we had a crawdad party because it's a thing that they do in Sweden. And so it's a nice way to connect back to the people that you know best in the world in terms of culture. And also, if you have people from other cultures, it's a nice way to do a cultural exchange. And then you feel good because you're experiencing it and living it. And then they feel good because they're exploring it. So it is a really good option if that's something that you like to do and that you like to cook. Or, I mean, it could even be ordering a pizza from Domino's and watching a Netflix show. You know what I mean? So just doing it together with somebody who speaks your language and you don't have that barrier of culture or language or any of it. This woman says, just pack your luggage and go home. What's the problem? Which, fair enough, unless you're in a pandemic or you don't have the money to do that. That's either someone who comes from a place of privilege or it's someone who lives in Europe and can go home for $10. So either way, it's definitely a privilege to be able to just pack your luggage and go home. Because for me, in order to do that, a last minute plane ticket would cost me 2 months rent. Not as easy as one would think. Another good one, drink more champagne and that will numb the pain. Champagne makes everything better. That is very true. And then this one is also very honest. Some days I don't cope too well. Like I said, I don't cope too well sometimes too with my homesickness. So she's saying sometimes I don't cope very well and I just try to find a distraction until the feeling passes. I think that that's really true because you're just feeling this feeling. Sometimes it's okay to just not be able to cope and just figure a way to distract yourself. Like I said, my way is pajamas and a TV show that I don't have to think about anything. And we'll end with this one because it's just sweet. Expand your family with a dog adoption, but only if you're aware that this option comes with a true commitment. I think that that's very well said. I adopted my baby Stella when she was just 2 months old, and it was the best thing that I ever did. The best thing that I've ever done in Paris is adopt Stella. And she has been along with me on this ride for 8 years now. I don't know what I would do without her because she is the bomb. And we will definitely talk about adopting pets and all of that, traveling with pets in a different episode later because it is very different. So that's a really good one. I love that. adopt a dog. On that note, I'm very happy. I hope that this helps y'all with any type of homesickness or sadness or disconnect you're feeling. It is totally normal, and just know that worst case scenario, like the woman said, you can always go home. Hopefully you have the means to, and if it has to be permanent, it has to be permanent. There's no shame in not wanting to live wherever you're living and or to have lived there and not have it work out. But I will say a final note of you do have to give wherever you are, I think personally, a solid year before you can decide really whether you like it or you don't. And I think honestly, most places take 5 years. Those first 6 months are going to be really hard, and they're going to be stressful and fun and amazing and an emotional high. And they're also going to be emotional lows, feel weird, and all of that's going to happen. So if you can stick it out those first 6 months and make it to the next 6 months, I think you will have a better grasp of if this is going to work long term or not. And if it's not, there's no shame. Look at what you've accomplished, and it's a big deal. And so if you're in it and you're feeling homesick and you're feeling like you want to go home, just know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, that you're not in this alone, and don't be afraid to reach out to other people who are going through the same thing. And that being said, next week, we're going to talk to my friend Verla, whose name I can never pronounce correctly because she is from the Netherlands, and my mouth doesn't move that way, but I do my best. She is a sweet, sweet person who I met when I was an au pair, and for the longest time, I thought she was an au pair too. But she wasn't. She was just on her own in Spain. And so we're going to talk to her next week about how to win friends and how to meet people when you're kind of an introvert, because both of us are introverts, but we forced ourselves into these situations where we needed to not be introverts. And so we talk about all of that. We talk about all of our ridiculous nights in Barcelona, mostly drunk. We talk about all kinds of places that you can find to meet people, and how you stay friends 10 years later. So I'm so grateful that you listened to this episode and that you are liking it and subscribing to it and downloading it and sharing it with all your friends, because it's really helping us grow. And I'm so, 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 so grateful. So wherever you are, on whatever platform you're listening on, please rate and review, because it does help us grow. I can tell you we have doubled our downloads this week because it works. And share it with your friends if you're loving what you're listening to, and help our little community grow so we can do some very cool things together. And I look forward to talking to you next week. Thank you so, so much, and have a great week ahead. Bye. And as always, this podcast would not be possible without my dear friend Jewel, who is a sound engineer, and she makes me sound like I'm a pro and like I know what I'm doing when it comes to sound. It has been much trial and error, but thanks to her, she has made it happen. So you can find her on Instagram at Jewel, Jewel, Remeta, Remeta, and she does sound engineering, and she's incredible at it, and she does Reiki and healing, so you can reach out to her for either of those things. And the other amazing woman that I have to thank for this and for keeping me on track and doing all the good things for this podcast to help it grow is Nuhaila, who is the owner of a branding agency called Branda Blanca, and you can find her at Branda Blanca on Instagram, BrandaBlancaa on Instagram, and brandablanca.com. And she just does some amazing stuff in terms of social media, branding, content, and honestly, she just keeps me on time. She keeps me sane. She makes sure everything gets done. The only reason that things get done is because of Nuhaila, thankfully. So if you're interested in her services, definitely reach out to her. And again, thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.